Hey guys, Dave and Len here. Today we're going to talk about cards and war games, the good and the bad. I'll start with one of the good things. One of the good things is you don't have to use a clumsy random events table, so it prevents you from having to grab the rule book to find the table and roll on it each turn. So that's one of the good things. You got one?
Well, actually, my thinking of this is that sometimes I'd rather have the random results table instead of cards, because I'm thinking in terms of cards cost money, are expensive to produce. So maybe if we didn't have cards and just a random events table, they'd knock down the price.
Nah, some of the war games going for like $30 now are just a set of counters, a map, and a rule book in a Ziploc bag. So I think no matter what they do with components, the prices are still going to go up. I don't know why, but the prices are getting ridiculous on some of these games.
Yeah, because that's my hope is that maybe the card could reduce the price, but the cards I can understand are selling points. Because they look so nice with a nice, portrait. Mm-hmm. A good example recently what I played is Decision Games Banana Wars. Everybody has cards, and what it is each turn is really each administration. So if you have Woodrow Wilson's administration, which was 8 years long, you have 7, 8 cards or something like that. And what happens is you may pick the card that says administration ends, and there you are. You could have done stuff, but administration ends. Maybe during old Woody's administration, he didn't have to do too much, and but that was a game that's meant to be very unpredictable. So.
Yeah. Another thing you mentioned before about the nice artwork and stuff on the cards. I mean, that's good, and that gives you a lot of flavor. But another good thing is when they have flavor text on it, when the card's got some clever little sentence written on the bottom or something about what it's about. That's kind of cool too.
Yeah. One example, also a game that uses cards positively. Use the example of the Stratomat hockey game. Now the thing.
Did we play that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
When Gretzky scored a goal in the opening minute and you weren't impressed. I mean, a short-handed goal, no less. What it is you have 30 cards per period. And what you set your offense and forecheckers, and your opponent does also. And when you flip a card, it tells you cross-index what will happen. Now, the advantage of the cards also, it's a timekeeper. 30 cards, and the period's over. Because other tabletop hockey games, you have to keep track of time. You mark it off on, another sheet or something, and sometimes you sit there going, did I mark that off? I don't know. But with the cards, you can keep track. So that makes that game simpler, because you got enough writing with the shots and goals.
Another thing I like about card games, or games using cards, is sometimes they can be used as an AI to control the enemy. So if you're playing solo, you can use the cards to destroy, to move to tell what enemy forces move and to where. Usually that's done with a point-to-point map and stuff.
Yeah, one thing actually with cards is that it really limits playing the game solo. Because when I assume Banana Wars, you're supposed to, it's great for limited intelligence, for fog of war. But when you're playing solo, it's like, okay, I got these cards, how would I play it? And, you test the system, but it's not the same as playing solo.
Yeah, well, some games are better solo because of the cards. Like most of the decision games, mini games, use cards. And then, from GMT games, they got Comancheria or Comancheria, I don't know how to pronounce it. That uses a ton of cards and stuff, too. So, and some of them, it makes the game better for solitaire play, but for some, it makes the game worse. Like if it's a game where you're supposed to have hidden information and stuff, and you can see both sides. If you're playing alone, you can see both sides' decks. That kind of, you can't surprise yourself when you know what your other hand's holding.
Okay.
What about, I think I had some other negatives written to here. Oh, they also, sometimes, if you're doing random events with cards that can make the game a little bit too random, or even if they're not random events, they're just some other kind of effects. I don't know. It just adds a little bit too much randomness to the game sometimes.
One thing I know some game designers have is they have little things written in cards like one-time event only. Because there's a classic early called Mohawk about the French and Indian Wars. They used cards, but you didn't discard. So after the second turn, it's like it stops being the French and Indian War and just being a wild game. I don't know how many times the French win a naval victory and they get maybe an extra regiment or two. I forgot how that went. But it was like, if you want a historical reenactment of French and Indian Wars, this was not it. With the cards put in too much chaos. If they had just decisive victory, discard, use it once and discard, okay. But like I said, modern designers have got to learn to, there's certain one-time events. Because there's a way you gotta put a little chaos in, but it cannot be overwhelming, unless it's Banana Wars, which is all totally chaos. So.
Yeah, as far as other bad things, sometimes these, if there's too much of a reliance on cards, the war game ends up playing more like a Euro than a war game. Some people like that, some people don't. If you don't like Euros, you're not going to like it. But if you do, maybe you'll think it's great. And then the last thing, may be difficult to determine how to use a card without errata. You got a lot of games with cards, and in most circumstances, you can figure out how to use a card by the rules, but there's some games where you just come across a circumstance where you just don't know how the card applies, and so you're kind of clueless what to do with it, so you have to either wait for a errata or go on Board Game Geek and ask a question, and someone else who doesn't even know what the true answer is just going to say, oh, well, I play it this way, and then you'll be like, oh, well, I'll play it that way too. So, I mean, that happens sometimes. What was what's the name of that solitaire counterterrorism game from GMT Games? Labyrinth. Yeah, I came across a few cards in that where there were situations where I didn't know how to use them and stuff, so that's like a good example of it.
One thing is also you got to figure out what's random and what you can do. There was one GMT game where you ran those Civil War navies, and I'm still upset over the fact that the Union Navy could not build mortar rafts unless they picked a card saying Union Navy can build mortar rafts. Actually, they were cheap to make. I mean, I want my mortar rafts so I can blast all those, blast Vicksburg and other fortresses on the river lines. But I never got my mortar rafts, and it took me till last turn to win the game. So, I'm still upset over that.
So how do you like cards and war games overall? Do you like them or prefer they're not there?
Since you may be right about the fact it won't reduce it. Getting rid of cards won't reduce the price, so maybe I'm stuck with it. I know it's a big sales thing, and people like cards because it looks so cute. And maybe with today's production costs, maybe it doesn't cost that much to do.
Overall, I do like cards and war games as long as it's not overdone. As long as it allows the war game to still play like a war game, I like it. I like Euros, but I like war games, but sometimes you don't want your war game to be too Euro-like, so I prefer it. I mean, I like the cards, but just don't overdo it to the point where it's playing like just a Euro.
Yeah, it's you have to get a right mixture of unpredictability, but you also have some control.
Mm-hmm. And plus you have deck building in the game, which it is kind of interesting because you're choosing your forces with cards or whatever, or choosing your what deck you have. That's assuming the cards represent forces, so that's an extra element it adds. That's a little Euro-like, but if they don't overdo it, it's good.
Yeah.
Got anything else? Or
no, I just said that. Another example was the one GMT did, Flying Colors. They had one-on-one ship battles. It was like an addendum to their fleet fleet game, Flying Colors, where you pick cards. And I thought that was just complicated it too much. Mm-hmm. In that system, I just want to go out, shoot shoot up ships in a ship duel, so I can learn the system and then go on to the fleet battles. I didn't want to, I think they put the cards in to liven it up, because sometimes it had things like, ammunition shortage, or, one turn you fire at half strength and things like that, or fire may break out, to add some life to. I just wanted to play the system, and of course, without the cards, the ship duels are done in like 5 minutes.
All right, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll have a new topic for next week. Have a good weekend.